Cool. So what's going on, everybody? My name's Hayden Crabtree. I'm the author of this book, Skip the Flip, Secrets the 1% Know About Real Estate Investing. And if I got a 1%er real estate investing with me today. So I have the man himself, AJ Osborne, another best-selling author, a king of self-storage. What's going on, man?
How's it going? Doing good, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one big question. I mean, it's Ozzy Osborne is your dad, right?
Yes, absolutely. Daddy Ozzy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, no, I'm just kidding. But AJ and I met, I've been following AJ, but we met in Vegas back in July and just talked a little bit. And I, said, hey, man, I'd love to catch up with you some more, share some stuff with my audience. So let's go from there. So I just want to start out, tell everybody, about your book, about yourself, what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So, I'm a total self-storage nerd. It's all I do. I've been doing it for, 15 plus years, started in the early 2000s. And it's, I didn't actually get started in real estate. That wasn't my thing. I was in insurance, right? So we did consultations for companies and corporations to manage their risk on their premiums and dollar amounts, a lot of self-funding, and we'd help them do all that kind of stuff. So I got started in self-storage really as a way to try to lower my tax rate because we got paid on commissions and we were taxed really high on it. It's a cash flow business. There's no hard assets. There's no nothing. It's a consultation. I get paid a check and the government takes half. And so we're like, what can we do? And we wanted to get started in something else. So from there, we were looking around and I actually didn't like real estate at all.
Really?
I thought it was a really poor use of capital because I was used to buying things that I could go out and buy a firm and get 3 times a multiple of revenue. I was paid off in 3 years and it cash flowed great, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking, wait, I got to put whatever it is, $100,000, $1 million, 10, whatever the number is into this. And I'm making how much? Like, it didn't make sense to me at the time.
Right.
So when we got started, I looked for assets that I could use the things that I knew from business and apply them to real estate because I wanted to have an effect on the overall revenue and grow, right? And so self-storage was this weird asset class that was a junkyard basically at the time.
When was this?
Early 2000s.
So early 2000s, right? I mean, self-storage, nobody even hardly knew what self-storage was then, right?
No, it was like we couldn't even get financing because banks are like, you want us to lend on what?
Yeah.
We couldn't even get banks to give us money. But for us, it was cash flow heavy. I was buying them at 12, 15 caps because nobody wanted them. And so I'm like, I don't get this. The cash flow is really high and I can improve it and make even more money. So we got into it purely on a cash flow play. Like I just was going into it and trying to manipulate the revenue. And that created our overall model and strategy. And from there, we scaled to 150 million in assets. And then from there, we opened up and actually started syndicating investors. That was all done on me and my partner, my father's capital. We literally poured for almost 10 years. We poured every dime back into it. We didn't take anything out. And now we syndicate, we develop, we acquire. We are in 9 states, I think. And we're at somewhere around 2 million square feet now. We just closed on, I think about 500,000 square feet. I have another closing on Friday for another 100,000 square feet. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got started in self-storage, kind of what I did. And I wrote the book, Growing Wealth in Self-Storage. It was my step-by-step playbook, right, for turning the asset into a business, because that was kind of my shtick, right? Yeah. Like we'd go, like people ask me to come there, like, come speak at this conference and tell people what you're doing. And not being very tactful, I'm like, you guys don't even know what you own. You don't own real estate. This is a business.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, this is an operating business. That's why we got into it. But yeah, it's been a great journey and I love it.
Tell me the story of the first deal you did, right? Back when they were junkyard 15 caps. I mean, those deals don't exist anymore, but tell me the story of the first deal.
Yeah. So we were buying deals in like the middle of nowhere. They were lower barriers of entry. They didn't cost a lot. We were putting down $100,000 It was in fourth tier markets, fifth tier markets, places no one's ever heard of, right? In the middle of the mountains or the woods or out in the desert. And it was around the Northwest. So it was in the rural Northwest in Idaho, and in the eastern part of Oregon and Washington in small rural farm towns that had good cash flow. We would buy them at very, very high cap rates. And then we had to have the owners seller finance them. So we did a lot of owner financing because we couldn't get lending, right?
But the owners knew that too, right? They had gone through that same pain and they said, hey, I understand that.
Yeah, they knew it.
Yeah,
they knew it. They knew that in order to sell that asset, they were going to have to carry the debt. And they knew that it's not like there was no value play for them. It was a cash flow business, excuse me. So our first three, one was in eastern Idaho in a city called Idaho Falls, out on the outskirts of the city. There was another one in Bonner's Ferry, right? Which that was like our true real first one. There was no fences, no nothing. It was just a bunch of storage facility buildings sitting on the side of a road. No office, obviously, nothing. And then our third one was in a place called Pendleton, Oregon. And it was, and this is far away from me too. We're talking.
So where you were in Boise at that time?
I'm in Boise. Yeah. So the closest one to us was 3.5, 4 hours away. And that was on the other side of the state. The one in northern Idaho was 9 hours away.
Man.
Or 10. And then Pendleton was like 5 hours away. So what we did is we contracted with some local people. Like I think one was a tire changer.
Okay.
Like he'd go around with his truck and change people's tires when they got flats, right?
Okay.
And he would come and let somebody into the room, a unit, or change a lock. So there was no third-party management company, right? And then the other ones was like a real estate agent, and it was just really kind of, you just kind of made it work with what you could. And we realized that wasn't working very well. So we hired a property management company that was like doing apartments or something. And the asset just went to the crap. So we got forced in a position where we're like, we have to become operators because nobody's doing what we want. They're not doing it how we want. And their results are just horrific. And so we applied our business sense. We were back in Boise running our businesses, right?
Yep.
So we took that and applied it over to these little storage facilities, and it worked really, really well. And we're like, oh wow, like this worked even better than we thought. We're off to the races.
That's awesome. So, we're talking about you got in it, 15, 20 years ago, and I can only think about technology in general. And how much it has changed over the last 15 to 20 years. I mean, what would you say, from just an original self-storage investor, like what's the number one piece of technology that has just totally changed the way that you operate your facilities?
Yeah. So we got into self-storage for cash flow, right? Mm-hmm. But also I got into self-storage because I viewed it as almost like arbitrage and how we were going to operate and run them and what was happening in the market. And there was a whole different bunch of reasons. And I applied the same principles that I was using to look at cash flowing businesses to try to employ it over. And other industries like the one that I was in had been revolutionized in the 90s because of technology. They created a way for independent operators to compete against huge national companies. And we did this for a few reasons. We were able to use technology to do underwriting, management, all sorts of stuff with big clients and everything else. So we could go head to head with these big national corporations. And in storage, there was no technology, nothing, right? There was no, even like not a lot of people managed multiple sites. That didn't really exist. When I got into the industry, 93% of all owners were single operators. 93%, because there wasn't a way, or people didn't. So the industry hadn't had any real technology come in. You had SiteLink, and some other property management systems, but they sucked. They weren't good. And so we started looking for ways to bring technology in that would help us consolidate. So one of the reasons we came in is we identified this industry that will be revolutionized and changed through technology, just like our industry was, and that a mass consolidation was going to happen, because that's what happened in our industry as well.
Sure.
The big boys all of a sudden could start buying everybody up, and they were paying stupid multiples. And in storage, we said the same thing's going to happen, right? It's nobody knows about it, but they will. And this market will go from 93% and it'll inverse, right? You'll only have 20% will be single operators. Everybody else will be huge multinational corporations, funds, and everything else. So we looked at it and said, we want to be the one consolidating. That was the goal. That was the purpose.
Yeah.
So functioning property management systems, although they were good, that still wasn't the thing that really changed storage. The thing that really changed storage, online rentals. And we were working in the industry. So because none of these resources existed, we were founding members of a company called Store Local. And it's a co-op, not a company.
Sure.
Where us and other large operators were getting together. We were pooling resources to try to leverage technology, start technology, and get buying power like the big boys had, right? Because we knew if we don't fight consolidation and allow mid-size and individuals to win, we're going to doom ourselves. So we knew here in 15 years, single operators, they will not be able to compete with the big operators, which has never been a problem before because you were buying such high cap rates and you're getting cash flow. But cap rate compression kills individuals, because big guys can take money at 3 or 2% or 1%, and they can buy a 5 cap and it makes them money, where individual operators can't do that. And so we knew that was coming.
Not only can they do that, they have to do that, right? I mean, you literally talk to these guys and they're like, yeah, we need to spend 500 million by September. And you're like,
yes,
that's a great problem to have, I guess, but that's why I can't find deals, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we knew that smaller individual operators would be pushed out. So Store Local was created to support and allow single operators and more independent firms like mine, right, that wanted to grow and be big. But you got to realize, when we're talking big in real estate, big is very, very different. So when we were at 150 million in assets, we still weren't probably considered big at all, at all. I had friends that owned single assets, just one, that was worth more than my entire portfolio. Now in self-storage, we were considered huge, but that was the thing. We knew that would change. Like it would turn into office, thing like that. So with Store Local, we really focused on online rentals because we believed that there was 2 competing things for the big guys. The big guys were going to compete us on the financing, the money side. The next side that they were going to compete on us is customer acquisition. And the customer acquisition is very important because that's a competitive ability to squash other people in the market. So then they can operate totally different. So a lot of the focus became on online customer acquisition. So we rolled out the first true automated facility in the United States. And when I say true automated, a lot of people say they have an automated facility. What they really do, though, is there's a lock sitting in a unit. Somebody rents online, they get an email with a code, they go in, they use the code to get in the gate, then they they get a lock, they put it on, right? Then they leave, it's empty, they got to go down still and do it. So automation doesn't mean manless. There's no such thing as that. People that try to say that in storage, it doesn't exist. We have to evict people, you have to clean out units, you have to do all these things. But a true online automated facility allows a customer to rent, to pay, to access, to use doors, everything from a mobile app. As in, a life cycle of one tenant never needs a human touch. I don't have to go deliver locks. I don't have nothing, right? Now, we have managers that do all the other stuff that needs to be done. But the life cycle of the tenant, we needed to automate because of the customer acquisition process. What the big boys were doing was they were cutting in front of everybody else, and they were acquiring the highest paying tenants. And they were doing this through technology. and then they would leave low paying tenants for the rest, and they would all try to compete for it. But then the tenants would have to go to one shop to another shop to try to get a rental, right? So what happened is they were falling to the easiest ways in online rentals. So we built a facility that had a product done by Janus, which is no key. So we teamed up with no key and we put it in our first facility. And this was generation nothing. This isn't even generation one. We were literally testing this out. Nobody had ever done this before.
You were a Nokia beta user, is that right? You were a Nokia beta user?
I was a Nokia beta user. Yep.
Yeah.
We were the first ones in the United States to pull this thing out and try it. There was a lot of problems with it at the first and everything because you don't know, and we're trying to figure it out. But we believe in the product and we believe that that was so necessary. Then we all founded a technology company. And the technology company is a property management system that will online have open APIs, meaning that it can connect with other places on the internet seamlessly.
Is that Nectar?
Yes.
Nectar? Okay. So
no, not Nectar, Tenant. It's Tenant Inc. and the product's Hummingbird.
Hummingbird. And Nectar is a feature. That's the open API source of it, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that allows that process to happen seamlessly for consumers. And
I heard that's going really good. I heard you guys are beating a lot of your projections.
Yeah, it's been killing it. So because there's so much demand, it's just needed. And the cool thing about this, though, this technology company, almost all the technology platforms in self-storage were other outside technology companies coming in and trying to do a product fit.
Sure.
This was owned, funded, and made by storage operators.
Yeah.
That's right. So we said, all this is wrong. Then they hired tech people to make what we needed. And we own the data. And we weren't single sourced anymore and all this kind of stuff. Now, I'm getting in the weeds about this stuff.
No, this is for people who want to get in the weeds. So you're good.
Yeah, good. Because I love this stuff. The point being is, like, we viewed as big operators and as operators that Store Local and Tenant Inc. was the gift to give to the industry and us. We made it for us because we had to have it to survive. And it would only be viable if we sold it to the market, or else we could never afford to do it. So we made a product for us that we could survive and compete at the exact same level as the REITs. And this was a huge mission of ours. We've spent personally millions on this that I've spent. And it was in an effort to try to make sure that the self-storage market, for anybody that's listening to this and wanting to get into it, you don't need to worry about that stuff. You just need to know that there's something that exists that can make sure that you can be in it for 10, 15 years. Because we don't want to end up like the hotel industry. And that's where storage is headed. The reason why the hotel industry consolidated so much was because of their ability to control the customer. Like, if you go online, yeah, it is. And we were learning it in self-storage in real time when we were doing this. And so if you go to a city in a hotel and you look up hotels to stay in, you're gonna have what, 4 brands, right? You have Marriott, Hilton, and 2 others that anyone could think of. Outside that, there's nothing. You don't have hotels everywhere. Hotels didn't used to be like that.
Well, the hotel industry has tried to almost disseminate itself, because now you've got each, Marriott or Hilton. Now they all have these micro brands, but it's all the same thing.
Yes,
they're
it's
trying
all
to
the same thing.
Yourself by 100% the process.
If you ask somebody to name 5 hotels, they would name 5 hotel chains. Really, they're only naming 2.
Yeah,
the 2 own the other 3.
Yeah.
And that's something we obviously wanted to avoid. I don't want to have to sell. I don't want to get to a point where I can't compete. So it was survival for us and the industry as a whole, right? So long story short, we've been involved in this industry forever. We love it. I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I think it's the coolest asset class out there. I believe that there's more potential for an individual investor to be successful in self-storage than any other commercial real estate asset. I don't believe that will be true for long. And right now we're in a cycle where, okay, maybe there are better options in other real estate asset classes due to hyper cap rate compression due to coronavirus and the downfall of office space and hotels. Because I'm writing a book right now called A New Era in Real Estate Investing. And the whole point of it is to show what's happened with these assets. We had 4 golden gooses of real estate that got demolished and basically a 10-year time. Housing that was considered, it could never fail, it could never go down, was wiped out. Next, we had retail. That retail was basically a government bond. It was considered so secure. Then third, you had hotel. And then fourth, you had office space. These are four major assets that all investors and everyone loved. They were staples. All of them have gone through a period in 10 years where everyone was questioning their complete survival of the industry.
Yeah. Like, what will we do with these assets, right?
Yeah. And that made a mass amount of investors look elsewhere. Where did they look? Storage.
Well, yeah. I mean, I tell a lot of people, what's going on? Storage, cap rates are supposed to be high. Are returns higher in storage? And I go, look, I'd love to tell you they are, but the truth is when COVID hit, everybody was expecting a downturn and everybody's investment thesis changed to where can I find recession resistant income? And the majority of people turn to storage, right? Because the data just shows that performed best, I guess aside from senior living. I mean, senior living and storage were the highest performing. And senior living was kind of a bad option given COVID and its effects, right? And so much new capital, not only has so much new capital been created, but so much of it has gone directly for storage that, it's insane. It's an insane market. It's insane. Like you could probably sell your portfolio right now for over like 50% more than what you could have sold it for 2 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Like I say 150 million. That's at $100 valuation. There's portfolios going for $300 and $400 a square foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I think I saw one the other day go for like $650 or something. It was insane.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about valuations that puts my portfolio at $600 and $800 plus million.
Yeah.
And when you start to look at what's happening, that's the consolidation. They're buying these at any cost. We have to get more. And self-storage is uniquely affected by this because operators, not all performance is the same. So a better operator can generate multiples more revenue than a poor operator can. So that's what was happening in insurance that we were in and everything else. So now big operators are more incentivized to buy because it's a roll-up, right? So in private equity and in these large funds, you have roll-ups. They're buying individual assets and they're rolling them up into a big portfolio and getting a portfolio value. I was doing that in storage because I could buy I was doing that in insurance because I could buy a insurance brokerage firm at 1.5 times and I could bring it into our brokerage firm. The moment I brought it into my brokerage firm, it was worth 4 to 5 times.
Because
I didn't do anything.
Or what?
Yeah, the multiple of revenue. The multiple of revenue. That's how much you pay for it. So I pay 1.5 times revenue, right, to buy it. The moment I sign the documents, that revenue is associated with me and its values at 4 times. So let's say I pay $1 million for it and I buy it for 1 times. The moment I sign the papers, that $1 million turned to 4. And I didn't have it to do anything, right? Theoretically, that's kind of what I'm showing here. That's called a roll-up. And right now, roll-ups in storage is big. It's big business and big operators have a lot of power.
I mean, the reason it's big, right, goes back to the saying of what we were just saying is that the people with the money right now aren't looking to get deals. They're looking to place capital. And the fastest way to place capital is by buying roll-ups, right?
Yep, 100%. Exactly. And 2, that justification, if I buy it, it'll be worth more. The portfolio effect, everything else like that justifies very little price or very little cash flow or profit because the value increases, right? I don't necessarily believe in this model. So there's a lot of problems with this model and the self-storage markets in a period that we will look back in history on. Like I tell people, if you got into storage in the last 4 years, you didn't have to do anything and you're a genius.
Yeah.
It is the best 4 years the industry has ever seen. You had to do nothing. If you owned it, you made money. And that will not continue. It can't. It's been a period of time that is not representative of performance because of all these different things we're talking about. And it is not indicative of the future. So we're already seeing rate increases start to stall out across the country because we're capping out. At some point, people just can't pay that much.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that across the country.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said something important a second ago, which I know to be true for sure. And you said that, same exact facility, same location. It's on 123 Main Street in small town, big town America. Doesn't matter. Pick the town.
Yep.
One guy's got his hands on it. It's making X. Another guy's got his hands on it. It's making X times 2 or 3, right?
Yep.
How does somebody who wants to get into self-storage learn the skill set in order to say, okay, I'm confident that I can go out and do 2, 3X what it's currently doing?
Okay. So this is actually the part that I love about storage. I don't want to say easier, because storage is a little more heavy on operations, but it is much more common sense, and there's way more opportunities in it than any other asset class I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So to give you an example, like you're talking about, I have a facility that I'm getting $1 a square foot a month in revenue. A half a mile down the street, there's a facility that gets 40 cents. They're still 10 by 10 boxes. There's zero difference in it, right? So really,
there's probably one difference, right? One guy answers his phone and the other guy doesn't.
Yes, exactly.
That's the only difference, right?
That's the only difference.
Yeah.
So in storage, you don't need to get these massive times bigger, right? That you don't need to do that. I don't need to be a top performer. I don't need to know all the stuff about technology. I can buy underperforming assets from a super mom and pop investor. So this is how I started and how we became successful.
Yep.
Okay. And this still works today, because remember, today 70% of the industry is still single operator owned, right? And a lot of them are still operating it like they were in the 90s. All you have to do is you have to find one. You have two things in value that we look for. So I look for discrepancy in rates. First of all, how do I know if there's potential? I look in the market and see if there's higher payers. That's it. That's all I got to do. So I know that you're charging X and somebody's charging a lot higher than you. Well, what's the difference? Right? Well, like we talked about, there's not a lot. It's still a 10 by 10 box. Well, the difference is you take it over, you answer the phone, like you said, you clean up delinquencies, meaning if someone's not paying you, you kick them out.
Yeah.
And then you use marketing to get a new person in. And
but AJ, there's these eviction laws, man. We can't kick people out, can we?
And storage, boot them. They can go out basically. Now, all the states' laws are different, but you have a certain period of time. It's short, and they don't pay. They get booted. It doesn't matter. If they don't move their stuff, you put their stuff for auction. Somebody comes, picks it all up, leaves. You sweep it out, and you rent it to somebody else at a higher price. The number one thing that matters. So if you just did that right there, you would be successful in storage.
Yeah, you would make an outsized return.
Yes, you would get an outsized return. As long as you go into markets that have demand. This is the downside of storage. Storage is more easily overbuilt than most commercial real estate assets because the capital needed is a lot lower. So if I'm building $100 million apartment complex, right, people don't really overbuild those markets. You have to invest so much, and it's all these professional teams that really analyze it. Self-storage, there's lots of people that don't do any homework. They don't know if there's demand, and they simply build. So I look for two things: demand and a poor operator. And by poor operator, I'm talking common sense stuff. That's it. If you meet those two things, you will be very successful in self-storage.
And so, I hear so much from people who ask me, hey, I want to get into self-storage. And they go, well, how do I figure out, what the market rates are? I go like, it's free and it takes 10 minutes. You get on Google, you type in self-storage 30307 or whatever your zip code is, and it's right there. And guess what? If it's not right there, it's probably because it's too low. And if you call them, they don't answer. That's a great sign. That's the best thing, Like, if you can't get a hold of them, you need to get a hold of them, right?
Yes, exactly. 100%. It's all out there. It's all common. And most markets at this point have good operators. And so a lot of them are testing highs in what they're charging that those markets have never seen. And everybody else isn't like there's owners. So I bought 2 facilities this month, 95,000 square feet and like 110, something like that. I bought both of them that were built 9 years, and I think 10 years, maybe it was 8 and 10 years ago. Neither one of them have ever raised rates since they bought it. You're talking about the best 10 years in the history and the highest rate increases that it's ever seen in this industry. And they've never done it. The reason being is they felt bad. These are huge facilities that are beautiful, institutional grade, and they are 30+% under market revenue.
Yeah. And so the great thing about those, right, is whenever we talk about the 30% under market, we're raising revenue by at least 30% instantly, but we don't have any additional costs. I mean, literally the only cost we're going to have is 2% payment processing. That's like, it.
Yeah. 2% processing and marketing ads.
Yeah.
That's it. It's, and you're immediately, it's the same product, the same everything. Well, excuse me. No, you're right. For that 30%, you don't even have marketing ads.
No.
You're just talking about an increase in the existing revenue. But then you increase, like, so if that's like a flat line, we do a 30% increase, but our new rental rate, so somebody that comes and wants to rent, because people are going to leave if you raise rents, right? But they actually don't leave nearly as much as people think. But if you raise rents that much, then you're going to get vacancy. So I replace the vacancy, but I don't replace it at 30% higher. I replace it at 50% higher. And then when the other rates that I just increased 30%, the next time they get a rate increase, it's 50%. So I'm looking to essentially, for me, our model is I need a 20% return. I need all my cash out and a profit of 20% within 3 years and get rid of all risk. And
20% cash on cash is the goal.
20% cash on cash.
Pre or post refi?
After rate adjustments.
Okay, but you want to refi to get capital out. So
and then I refi to get all my money out, so I have no capital in. Plus, I get that refi profit, right? And then it goes into a non-recourse loan, so I have no risk. So I got rid of my capital risk. I got rid of my liability because I'm on the loan. I've already made a huge profit in 3 years, and it's still cash flows, and I still am going to make a 20% return. So that's how we buy, and that's how we grow. It's a very popular model now, right? But it works. You got to do a lot of work now to find deals and get deals, things like that, because there's so much interest in it. But the point is, they're there. I don't see that in any other commercial real estate asset class.
Yeah. So I've actually just finished, going back to this point, I've just finished my second book, which it's called The 3 Keys to Any Deal. And I have this idea that, really there are 3 things needed inside of any real estate deal for completion. And a lot of people think they have to tackle everything themselves, and they really don't. The first and most fundamental thing is the deal itself. The second is the management of the asset, making sure that if you're not doing the property management, you're managing
somebody else is.
And then the third key is the capital to the deal. And so you get so many people, that want to do bigger deals, but they go, I just don't know where to start. I don't have the capital to do this. And I say, there's one place you need to start, and it's the hardest place to start. But once you have it, everything else will take care of itself. And that place is you need to go out and you need to find a good deal, right? If you can find a good deal, you bring it to AJ, you bring it to Hayden, you bring it to your local investor, you partner,
they're doing it with you
itself, and you will be a real estate investor in 90 days, right?
Yep.
Like it's guaranteed, because there's more money than ever. The hottest thing in the world right now, the hardest to find is a great deal, So, but how would you say, like, if somebody's listening to this and like, I want to go for self-storage, Hayden tells me don't go small because you'll make hundreds of dollars and it's not worth it, right? So if I want to buy my first deal over $1 million, what would you tell somebody who's done a deal, 2 deals, maybe they're single family, maybe they've never done a deal?
Yeah. So first of all, what you just said right there, I always tell people, you control the deal, or if you get a deal under contract, you control like terms and everything else, right? So the first thing I tell people is just what you said. Go out and try to find a deal. How you do that, I'm all about separating myself from the normal, right? So you have big operators, and they're sending out mailers. They're doing all of this stuff, right? They're hitting people with ads. They're doing all this different stuff. And you may say, I don't have the power. I don't understand. I don't even know what to ask that, right? All that kind of stuff. Avoid it. Pick an area that you want to be in, right? Find all the assets in that area that you want to be in. And you do what none of the big boys are going to do. You do what I'm not going to do. Because brokers, if you're buying a large asset, unless the broker knows right now that you're going to absolutely close on that deal, like you have money, experience, things like that, a lot of them aren't going to sell it to you, right? So I buy deals and I'm not the highest payer. So brokers will put on the market. I'm not the highest payer, but I still get it. I'll be $250,000 under. But they'll give it to me because they know I'll close. So that's my advantage now. When I got started, that wasn't. But what I was really good at, I had time and ability. So I would find assets, then I would go find the owner. And I wouldn't ask the owner to sell. I'd say, I'm really interested in this asset class and you're successful in it because you own this. Would you mind if I took you out to coffee? Would you mind if I just talked to you about it? I want to hear how you were successful. The reason is it's totally non-threatening, right? Yeah. And second of all, everyone loves to talk about themselves. Yeah. Everybody do. You do, I do, everybody does. That's why we're literally sitting here. That's the point. They say yes. I can't tell you how many owners get calls, mailers, and they just go straight to the trash. They don't even think about it. They don't consider it. It doesn't mean they're not sellers. It means they're programmed to not pay attention. If you can break that programming, you have so much power. And when I got started, I can't tell you how many deals that I did on a handshake deal at lunch or at a facility. How much do you want for it? Want this? Yeah, that'd be great. Handshake deal.
Well, so you got to sneak it in a little more, right? I say, man, this is just awesome. Like if you were to ever sell it, how much do you think you could sell it for?
You get to the sell. Yeah. And you say, I like to approach it. I like to say, I want to break into this industry. How do I find deals that I can buy? Or how do I find somebody that's a seller? And then they're going to start talking to you. I think Bob's a seller. You should talk to Bob. I know Bob from the association. I know he's been wanting to get out, but he really doesn't want to list his asset.
Yeah.
Great. And you say, oh, that's awesome. Say, hey, would you ever be willing to sell to me? All their guard is down at that point. They like you because they've talked about themselves and you've listened. And they say, either, yeah, I might be willing to do that. Or they say, not right now. You say, but if I am, I'll tell you. Great. You have now a hot prospect, but two, they're probably giving you other leads. And this is something that really works good in third tier, fourth tier markets where a lot of people begin, right? Like there's not a lot of people like, I'm going to get started in self-storage. Let me go down to San Francisco and see if I can buy that building over there.
Sure.
That's how it works, right? And in those markets, the big boys that are buying the buildings in San Francisco aren't going down to them and saying, let me pay you top dollar.
You got to go to Wall Street and talk to them, right?
Bingo. So those people like having the conversations. They have been successful. They like to talk about it. And everyone in self-storage, generally speaking, is willing to help.
Everyone is. That's one thing I was going to say is I've never met somebody in self-storage who's not willing to help you out. It's the friendliest industry in the world, I feel like.
Hands down. My direct competitors that I have, literally a half a mile down the road, he built a new one right next to me, right? Hanging out with him Friday night. We're sitting out by the pool, talking shop. And he said, hey, I want you to know that this type of unit or whatnot, I have it at my facility another mile down the road. And we just got this huge rate increase on X amount and we're getting it all day long. You can too. He's literally telling me how I can make more money. Going after the same customers.
But all tides rise.
All tides rise.
Yeah. All tides rise. So really consolidation is somewhat of a good thing in a way, as long as, and that's what you guys are doing, is to try to make consolidation a good thing for independent operators.
Absolutely. And that's something people always forget. Like people like, oh, the REITs and, they're scary. First of all, if you have a REIT come to town, you're guaranteed you'll make more money because the REIT's going to come to town and their rates are going to go straight up.
The rates are going to go up and cap rates are going to go down.
Yes, exactly. So don't view it as a bad thing necessarily, right? Now you may have lost an opportunity or whatever, that's fine, but look at it from this standpoint. A lot of markets are stagnant until REITs come in. So there's still markets in the United States that are, they're charging to a point where you could never even build and break even. Like you couldn't even do it. So you can't even build. There may be tons of demand, but you couldn't even go and supply the demand because revenue is so low, you would run negative just on the cost to even build. But somebody acquires those from a big firm or a REIT, whatnot, those rents start to raise if you own an asset, or it turns that market into an opportunity for you to enter that didn't already exist.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Man, we could literally talk for like 5 more hours. I know you have stuff to do. Maybe we need to do this again sometime, but I just want to say, if people are watching this, if they've enjoyed this conversation, I think you have a podcast. You're very active on Instagram, of course, your book. Where do you want people to go to learn more about AJ?
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you are into podcasts or books, check out, it's Self-Storage Income is the site. But Instagram, I'm on there. I post what we're doing all the time. You can DM me, reach out, go to selfstorageincome.com if you want to know more about self-storage. YouTube, the podcast is weekly. We tell everything about the industry, how to break into it, all that. I'm really easy to reach. So any one of those ways, website has an email, you can email me, or Instagram, straight DM me. I'm there all the time.
I can put all those in the description of the video too.
Yeah.
And so I'll post the emails on it too. So, well, man, I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you so much for your time. And
thank you for your time.
I know you got to go because I think you're closing the deal in like 15 minutes, maybe. Yeah. Cool. All right. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, thanks, dude. It was great talking again.